Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Darn that Cal Thomas. He quotes this song from How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, and now I can't get it out of my head. He plants earworms, show-tune earworms all the time.
And you played it for all of us.
I did. I played it there during the
loud.
news.
Very loud.
It wasn't that loud. It's a great show. It won the Pulitzer Prize, How to Succeed in Business. Original Broadway production with the then unknown Charles Nelson Riley. How about that? Sure. Yeah, he was great.
You always go on a little theater thing, rabbit hole after Cal comes on.
Theater thing. Coming up later in the program at 7:35, Maryland State Senator Justin Reedy. At 8:05, KT McFarland. And at 8:35, Steve Malloy, formerly of the EPA transition team for Trump, about how jeans are now bad for the environment. So if you really want to save the planet, stop wearing pants. I'm Larry O'Connor, alongside Julie Gunlock.
We're still on that, huh?
They're trying to get men to wear skirts all the time. This is just one way.
Well, I appreciate you coming in wearing pants this morning.
I'm going to switch to kilts.
Really
I think
awkward.
I've decided. I wonder if
I'm
Seb
sure they have a
Gorka
problem with that too.
wears kilts. Let's ask Katie. Because Seb's got class. He's got style. He's got roots in England where they wear kilts. Katie, does Seb wear kilts, or do you ever catch him in your closet?
Oh, Larry, no, but I can't believe you're asking me that because he did his DNA recently and he discovered that he's got some Scottish blood.
There it
So
is.
he's
There you
trying to
go.
convince me
You know what?
that he's allowed to wear kilts, and I said, over my dead body.
That sounds like Meredith.
Katie,
She's told me the
I
same
did
thing.
see you and Larry, Seb and Larry wear lederhosen.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
We
so
were
maybe
wearing
you should-
lederhosen.
Maybe you should switch to lederhosen.
Cater, we were at an Oktoberfest part. It is a very short hop, skip, and a jump from lederhosen to kilts. So maybe we should, you know what, maybe we should address this at another time, because right now we want to talk to you about your victorious election. We mentioned this last week. You were on to talk about your new book, NextGen Marxism, what it is and how to combat it. And I just mentioned, at the end, he was like, wow, by the way, you're up for chairwoman of the Fairfax GOP. And look at this, you won. You're the new chairwoman of the Fairfax GOP.
Woo.
I know. Can you believe it? So the election was on Saturday, and yes, indeed, I won. So it's a new day for the Fairfax GOP.
So what does that look like to you? What are the main obviously, your main priority is to win, to defeat the leftist Democrats in Fairfax County. But how do you plan to go about doing that?
Yeah, we are definitely trying to keep Fairfax from becoming any more like California than it already is. We've got a whole plan, just super aggressive. Obviously, we're going to be pushing Republicans to vote early and even to vote absentee, which I know people don't like. But it's those are the rules right now. We've got to do it if we want to win seats back. And then there's a lot more that we also need to be doing to reach voters who are unengaged. We've got way too many people here who don't vote. But here's the interesting thing, right? I've talked to many people in different especially like in the immigrant communities, who say their values align with the Republican Party. They don't like what the Democrats are doing. So I think we have a real opportunity to bring them in, and we're just going to be really focused on making sure President Trump wins come November. But we are also going to have a Senate race and a congressional race. So we're going to be working real hard.
Yeah.
Katie, I want to talk a little bit about your book. I think that when we talk about what's going on in Fairfax, it's so appropriate that you just authored this new book, NextGen Marxism, what it is and how to combat it. Given what's going on in Fairfax schools, it's just really concerning, sort of the indoctrination that's going on. Do you plan to talk to the GOP leadership there in Fairfax about how this can be tackled?
Oh, 100%. It's a very high priority for, everybody in Fairfax, honestly. I mean, one of the reasons people are willing to pay the high prices for real estate in Fairfax and the high taxes is because the schools historically have been among the best in the country. And, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't know if you've been tracking this, but one of the things that's come out recently, for example, is the outrageous amounts of money the administrators are making, right, versus the teachers. So the highest price, the highest you can make as the most qualified teacher, I think, is $119,000. And yet we've got a whole bevy of administrators making $240,000 and up, It's just crazy. And yeah, the indoctrination and just the poor performance. They're not serving students, they're serving their ideology.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny because you led by saying, we got to make sure Donald Trump wins, and I agree with that, but I don't think his path to victory necessarily goes through Fairfax County. It's winning those seats on the school board that could make a legitimate difference in the lives and ultimately, Katie, start to change the hearts and minds of voters in Fairfax County who might be repelled from the idea of voting for a Republican. But when you start showing them how their ideology and the Democrats that they keep voting for, how it's affecting the curriculum in their kids' school and the culture at large, which I know you care deeply about, that's how you start changing people's minds, isn't it?
It is, but the problem is we just had our school board elections, unfortunately. Yeah. So we've got 4 years to go, right? And I'll tell you what, the other thing with Donald Trump is we are hearing from especially like working class people and a lot of the newer immigrants. Mm-hmm. They don't like what Joe Biden's doing. And I think Donald Trump actually gives us an opportunity to bring people into the Republican Party that might not have considered themselves Republican. But yes, and so much of what we do has to be geared toward winning back those local seats 4 years down the road from now, because those are the seats that really do impact our daily lives.
Well, and Fairfax will be the path to victory for a Republican senator to defeat Tim Kaine, and there you can really mobilize in a huge way, as you mentioned. Go ahead.
Katie, how do you plan on reaching out to, persuadable independents and persuadable Democrats who are just fed up with the shenanigans, the tax increases, the mismanagement, the schools? How can the Fairfax GOP do a better job? And I don't mean better. I think they've always done a lot of great work in communicating with those persuadables. But I feel like there is so much fear with crime, with the border, with fentanyl. How do you plan on reaching out to those people who might consider voting for a Republican?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, there is no magic bullet for this. It really just takes hard work, and it takes having a very solid grassroots network. So actually, our first job is we are working right now on filling our empty precinct captain positions, because that's the backbone of our grassroots effort. And that means, bringing in people that might not have traditionally looked Republican or been Republican, right? Yep. And then it's just really, really, really doing the hard work of going to those communities and reaching them and talking to them, and also hearing their concerns. Their concerns are not always our concerns. Somebody was telling me the other day that they were talking to people in the African American community for whom mental health issues was a much bigger concern than you might hear somewhere else, right? So I think we have to be open to hearing what concerns them.
Great. And if people do want to get involved and become precinct captains, what should they do? Where should they go to contact you?
Absolutely. I hope they will. I hope more people will get involved. Reach out to me at the Fairfax GOP, Katie Gorka at proton.me, or go to the website. There's I think the email, it's like, oh gosh, that's terrible. I just got my
it's
email.
Okay. It's new. Okay. It's new. Don't worry about it.
But if they send it to the Fairfax GOP, we will see it and we will respond, and we will scoop them up and bring them in.
All right. Quick word of warning: cicada season is coming up here this spring and summer, and we always use your husband Sebastian's video that he tried to put out as a cautionary tale. He was promoting his show, and it sounded like this.
Just how bad is the corruption in the Biden family, in the Biden administration? We're going to go deep dive on the Gorka reality check.
Honestly, Katie, you must be in the middle of a brood right there where you are in Fairfax County. The cicadas are serious.
It was unbelievable. They were all over the fences, the trees. It was awful.
I love that it didn't deter Seb, though. He's like, I'm going to do my video. Well, cicadas or not, let's go. It's fantastic.
I know. What are you going to do, right? They had taken over our world.
Thank you, Catherine Gorka, Chairwoman of the Republican Party in Fairfax. Yay. Great talking with you.
Thank you.
It's 7:15, WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes first on the fives. There's only one thing I can say to Jamie Whitten.
Greetings.
What's going on in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center?
News is brought to you by New Look Home Design.
WMAL, making sense of education, because what's happening in your kid's school matters. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Well, it's clear that over the last couple of days, news reports about the solar eclipse pretty much overshadowed everything else that was in our midst.
That's right.
We had full coverage of the eclipse.
You were kind of negative.
No, I'm making puns, and you're not jumping
I'm
up.
not paying attention. I'm sorry.
Overshadowed? Full coverage? Come on, work with me.
Sorry.
And we thought we had it all behind us. We thought it's like, good, we don't have to talk about the eclipse again for 20 years. But then here comes Representative Sheila Jackson Lee commenting on the science. But I saw this in a report. So it's like, what a great scientific marvel, this solar eclipse. It's not science. It's like everything is science all of a sudden.
I know.
This was not actually, there's nothing scientific about an eclipse. If you want to, it's mathematics, I suppose, that you could predict when it's going to happen. It's geometry, perhaps.
Right.
Or, dare I say, it's actually a wonder of God's creation. But
there you go. Oh,
God
can't
forbid
say that.
we say that. No, it's a scientific marvel. So here's Sheila Jackson Lee commenting to students at a school. She's delivering remarks about this. And I want you to bear in mind as you hear this, that Sheila Jackson Lee, whose district includes Mission Control in Houston, was part of the NASA and Aerospace Subcommittee.
You have the energy of the moon at night. And sometimes you've heard the word full moon. Sometimes you need to take the opportunity just to come out and see a full moon is that complete rounded circle, which is made up mostly of gases. And that's why the question is why or how could we as humans live on the moon? Are the gases such that we could do that? The sun is a mighty powerful heat that is almost impossible to go near the sun. The moon is more manageable, and you will see in a moment, or not a moment, you'll see in a couple of years that NASA is going back to the moon.
Where do we start?
I wish you could see the video, too. I want everyone to know also that this woman went to Yale. Is she actually trying to become the president of Yale or Harvard?
Oh, Lord, it's so good. She and...
well, we're missing the best part, though, because
What's that?
later on, she tries to put on the little glasses
fix it?
to look at the sun during the eclipse. That's the best part. And I really do encourage people to go and watch the video, which we can't really, we could describe. She's fumbling. And then at the end of the video, she's fumbling around and she goes, just pretend you can see.
The moon is made up of mostly gases.
I thought it was cheese.
Yeah, well, or barbecue ribs. Don't forget, Harry Carey once speculated about that.
Hi, everybody. Harry Carey here. And welcome to Space the Infinite Frontier. We've got a great show lined up for you. Joining us in the studio today, all the way from Caltech, is astrophysicist Dr. Ken Waller. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thanks so much. It's nice being here.
Now, Doctor, recently they've discovered that there might be life on one of the moons of Jupiter. Yeah. Now, that's gotta be exciting for you.
Oh, yeah, Harry, we're thrilled to discover that.
You remember this skit? With Jeff Goldblum, and this was like when Saturday Night Live was funny.
Why would you do that?
Curiosity, I guess. Heck, I'm curious like a cat. I have a couple of friends that call me Whiskers.
Because you're curious like a cat?
Yes. Hey, now, Ken, we all know that the moon is not made of green cheese.
Yes, that's true, Harry.
But what if it were made of barbecue spare ribs? Would you eat it then?
What?
I know I would. Heck, I'd have seconds. And then polish it off with a tall, cool Budweiser.
Oh, we're laughing now, but how is that any different than Sheila Jackson Lee, a sitting congresswoman on the subcommittee for NASA and aerospace, proclaiming that the moon is in fact not made of spare ribs, not made of green cheese, but is in fact made up of mostly gases.
Right.
Because
the rings of Saturn are actually donuts.
Ooh, not even that. I just love that.
I go back for
I
seconds.
go back and eat the rings of Saturn any day. It's 7:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37 here on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here on a busy Wednesday morning as we're finally got that eclipse thing behind us.
Oh, good.
Except for Sheila Jackson Lee confirming what we always suspected, that the moon is made of mostly gases.
That's right.
And clearly nobody actually set foot on the moon because it's made of gas. How do you step on gas? Where's Buzz Aldrin punching people when we need him? Not that I would want the good Congresswoman assaulted in any way whatsoever.
Right.
Let's face it. We've put a man on the moon. We are either smart enough as a nation to put a man on the moon, or even better, we're smart enough to fake it and get away with it for 50 years. Either way, we rock as a country.
We do.
I'm glad we've settled that. Coming up later in the program at 8:05, we'll talk to KT McFarland. And at 8:35, Steve Malloy, former Trump EPA transition team, about how jeans are bad for the environment. Every time I see that, it makes me laugh. Right now, though, we are joined by Maryland State Senator Justin Reedy, representing Carroll and Frederick counties, on behalf of sensible people everywhere. And he's surrounded by lunatics there in Annapolis. So we appreciate you taking one for the team, Senator Reedy. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's great to be on with you guys, and yes, the American flag still floating in the gas of the moon.
Exactly. So it's shocking to me that anybody living in Maryland, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, would look around and see what's going on and say, you know what the problem here is that Marylanders aren't paying enough in taxes. Ugh. But somehow that's the conclusion Democrats have reached. Where does it stand right now on the tax situation?
Well, you know, it's interesting. We started the legislative session in January with Governor Moore and talking about the big issue facing Maryland, or one of the big issues, was lack of competitiveness, and Maryland being a difficult place for people to live. And we concluded the session by deciding that the way to improve on that was there was a number of different things that were passed to further regulate and add cost onto doing business, which is, you know, stuff that doesn't always make the headlines, but then also this car registration tax increase. Look, I mean, what happened was during the session, the House, particularly the House of Delegates, Democratic leadership was pushing billions of dollars in new taxes or tax increases, and a lot of most of that was defeated and pushed back and defeated. But what they have done is, and the Senate Democratic leadership stood firm on a lot of the major tax increases, but then at the end of the day decided to go along with raising the car registration fee. And look, our transportation, that money goes into our transportation trust fund, and some of it will go towards our shock trauma system. And look, our transportation trust fund has problems with funding. But here's the problem. Our gas tax goes up every year in Maryland automatically, never goes down, always goes up without a vote of the legislature because of a law passed over a decade ago. Mm-hmm. But what happens is we spend about 50% or a little more than 50% of the entire transportation trust fund on mass transit, which only pays about 5 to 7% for itself. So what happens is when they say, well, we've got to find funding for the transportation trust fund, and everybody goes, well, yeah, sure, we've got to pay for roads and bridges. Well, we could start by not siphoning so much of that off into mass transit and force mass transit fare recovery to pay for itself. I had a bill this year to try to mandate higher percentages of reimbursement from mass transit in the form of fares, because right now when you fill up your gas tank, you're paying almost 50 cents. This is not even counting what you pay in your car registration tanks. You're paying almost 50 cents to government. But so you're filling up your gas tank, but you can ride from Bethesda to downtown DC for like $5 one way on the metro.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah. So we've got to get more reality based on that.
Well, also ignoring reality is voters are very concerned about crime, particularly in areas closer to the D.C. area. It's sort of bleeding into those Maryland communities and Northern Virginia communities, and yet the Maryland Assembly is looking to limit people's ability to own guns and self-defense by attacking gun manufacturers. Where did that bill go?
Well, that bill did eventually pass. We actually tried that. It did not make it to the Senate floor until the final bill didn't make it to the Senate floor until a few hours before midnight on Monday. And we actually, our Senate Republicans we filibustered it. Of course, we only have 13 votes, and you need 19, so they shut down our filibuster after about an hour. But that bill did pass. It says the attorney general or a county government attorneys, if you're attorney for your county council or county government, can go sue out-of-state gun manufacturers, gun stores. Even I think it still has individuals if you participated in some sort of, if you were negligent in how you went about selling or manufacturing firearms. That can't just be. It is true. It wouldn't just be like you sold a gun and somebody used the gun. But they use the example of if you're a gun manufacturer and you sell a gun that can, in their view, be too easily manipulated illegally, of course, into something. That means that they can go try to sue you. I think there's major constitutional issues with it because several other states have tried to pass this, and I think it's in court in some other places. But again, it just goes to show you we struggled to pass anything to crack down on crime. We had a couple things that passed that were decent, but we didn't make any major changes on cracking down on crime. But yet we'll continue to target our favorite whipping boy in Annapolis, which is law-abiding gun owners. Well,
and it's also a way, it sort of opens it up to this sort of Letitia James strategy of putting the gun manufacturers out of business, just sort of suing them into oblivion. Isn't that right?
That's I think the goal. Whether they can actually do that or not, I don't know. But the fact that they're constantly trying. I said on the Senate floor that they're straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel as it relates to crime, because they'll go to the nth degree to find every last little thing they can do to supposedly control guns that law-abiding citizens can have, or that law-abiding businesses that are producing the products that we've had in our country for hundreds of years. It's part of our heritage of firearms, but we can't. Yeah. It's very hard to pass. They continued, the House particularly didn't want to pass making theft and possession of stolen firearms a felony.
Senator Reedy, at the last minute, you all had to put through some relief for families who were affected by the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and presumably you're hoping that money will be reimbursed by the federal government. I know Joe Biden has already made a promise to that effect. But the company that's responsible for the crash is Grace Ocean Private Limited. They own the ship. They trained the personnel, or were responsible for hiring a company to train the personnel. They've already filed in U.S. District Court in Maryland an action to cap their liability at $43 million. They're invoking a Limited Liability Act of 1851 that ship owners can invoke. Has the state of Maryland filed a similar suit against this shipping company to make sure that the taxpayers are protected and the real people responsible for this crash pay for it?
We will be pursuing, my understanding is I don't know that a suit is filed yet. We will be pursuing all options to pursue recovery from the shipping company. It is true. I heard about them filing that act, and I honestly not super familiar with the act from 1880. I do know that was something they're going to try to claim. It'll have to be adjudicated in court, and my understanding is we will contest that as a state vigorously.
Governor Moore's office is, because he was standing next to Biden when Biden said, we're going to pay for the rebuilding of the bridge. And I would have liked the governor to step up and say, well, you shouldn't have to do that. Let's go after the shipping company who has insurance and has very deep pockets. But Governor Moore seemed to applaud, knowing that federal tax dollars would pay for it.
I think that I've had that question from a lot of people, and I think the Attorney General, Anthony Brown, would be responsible for going after, I'm assuming at the direction of the governor. But also, I would say this, it takes a long time to adjudicate these kind of claims against the shipping company. So we did need help to start. You don't want to wait.
Understood.
A year and a half
I get that. I get that, but it would be great. The problem, Senator Reedy, is I search for headlines about this issue on a daily basis, and all I see is how the shipping company is going to court and protecting themselves from liability, and I'm not seeing anything coming from the state of Maryland or from the federal government trying to block that and preempt it. But you say you hear that it's happening, so we'll take your word for it.
We need to be very aggressive about it.
Yeah.
Talking with you, it's a reminder to you definitely stay on top of it, because they owe. Now, whether they'll be liable for the billions of dollars in damage, I don't know, but we need to get every single penny we can, because it was their negligence that caused it.
I think we can agree they should be liable for it, whether they actually pony up or get their insurance company to do it. But if that company is still operating while we're paying the bills for their damage, that's injustice. And so hopefully we'll fix something. Absolutely. Senator Reedy, thanks for fighting the good fight there in Annapolis. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
just to follow up on this, I just want to rant for a minute. I feel like I'm the only one who continues to beat this drum about this shipping company. This is a major multi-billion-dollar conglomerate shipping company.
That made a serious error.
There's no denial that it's either their equipment that was failed.
It wasn't intentional.
Or their people failed.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the Maryland Assembly will go after gun manufacturers.
Well, this is what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Since when is it bad politics for an elected official to stand up and go after the greedy corporation that just caused all of this damage and ended up killing people because of their negligence? This is low-hanging fruit. This is a slam dunk. And yet you don't hear any politician saying we're going after this Singapore shipping company.
No, I don't agree with it, but that's the exact argument that Democrats use to go after gun manufacturers.
Or cigarette manufacturers or any of them.
But they're not willing to do it this time.
We've got it on tape. We know what happened. Right. Why are they never mentioning it? I don't get it. We're going to keep beating the drum here. Tell me I'm wrong. Come after us on social media, on our Facebook page or X, and say,
taxpayers do not
Larry,
need to
you've
be
got it
on
all
the hook for
yes,
this.
and yet it's just, we're going to rebuild this, and we're going to pay for it, federal dollars. It's like, could we at least file something in court saying that the shipping company should pay for this? I don't get it. This is literally a greedy corporation who, through their negligence, just had people killed and has destroyed a major bridge in this country, and no one's talking about them being culpable. It's going to affect this city for years.
Oh, yeah,
it's a decade.
For years.
A decade is going to affect us. 7:53.